You guys remember those stop bullying signs that we used to have in school? Yeah, not a single kid that I remember in class would ever look at that and go like, yeah, you know what? I'm not gonna bully people anymore because of that sign up there. When you have classmates who say a bunch of racist stuff to you, even though you didn't do anything to them, and then you combine that with a school that cares more about maintaining a good image versus actually stepping in and doing anything to stop that harassment, what do you think that would lead to? I'll give you a hint. It's a recipe for disaster. And that's exactly what happened to this 11-year-old girl named Jocelynn. Jocelynn was one of those kids you could just look at and go like, dude, she seems so kind and pure-hearted. And she was a 6th grader at Gainesville Intermediate School in Texas. According to reports, she was getting relentlessly bullied by her classmates. But this wasn't just your typical kids being mean kind of bullying. You know, the one that's like, haha, you're stupid, you're ugly, you're fat, or whatever bullshit kids say these days. Honestly, that even sounds way too nice than the type of stuff that I could imagine kids saying. But the type of stuff that kids would say to Jocelynn was very targeted, cruel, and extremely personal. Her classmates mocked her for being Hispanic, and they threatened to call ICE to deport her family.
They say fellow students allegedly taunted her about immigration and what it would be like if her parents were deported.
They would tell me ICE was going to come. They would tell her ICE was going to come and get her parents, and she was going to be here alone.
Now here's where it gets worse. Jocelynn was meeting with a school counselor several times a week because of this. And guess what? The school knew she was going through this, but they chose not to tell the parents for some reason. Now, some people might say, well, why didn't Jocelynn tell her parents herself? It's her family after all. And there's a bunch of possibilities as to why that may have been the case, but it all boils down to the fact that kids, they don't think rationally. They don't think, what would be the smartest thing to do in this situation? No, kids think with their emotions. If you're an 11-year-old kid who's telling your parents that you get bullied every single day in school, well, now you risk making your parents feel like they're gonna panic, making them feel like they even failed you as a parent, and just adding extra stress to your family that you don't already want. Sometimes it wouldn't even feel like you're asking for help. It would just feel extremely humiliating. Even adults in their 20s and 30s that get sexually harassed by their coworkers struggle to speak up because they don't want to be labeled as that weak and vulnerable person in the office that everybody has to pity and be like, oh, I'm so sad, I'm so sorry that happened to you. So imagine how much more difficult that would be for an 11-year-old kid. Because on February 3rd, it got so difficult to the point that Jocelynn tried to take her own life.
Estaban reanimando a mi hija todavía porque había durado mucho sin vida porque prácticamente ella me la habían revivido.
So her mom was at work when she got a phone call saying something happened to your daughter. Her mom rushes home and sees a bunch of paramedics trying to revive her daughter's lifeless body. And at this point, she gets taken to the ICU in Dallas, where she stayed in critical condition for at least 5 days. Now, because this story is still somewhat fresh, there aren't too many details surrounding what Jocelynn actually tried to do in order to commit suicide. And I don't think her family would be super comfortable disclosing that information right now either. And after 5 grueling days of being in the intensive care unit at the hospital, Jocelynn's mom was hoping for a miracle to happen, but unfortunately, Jocelynn died.
Tonight, a heartbroken family says more could have and should have been done to save an 11-year-old girl in Gainesville. Jocelynn Carranza died a few days after trying to take her own life.
Jocelynn died February 8th, 5 days after she attempted suicide at her home in Gainesville. She would have been 12 years old this June.
So after it was discovered that Jocelynn had passed away, the school that she went to sent a letter to her parents, and it was complete garbage.
Gainesville Independent School District would not comment on her case, telling us that we take any reports of bullying at our schools very seriously and have a zero-tolerance policy and respond swiftly to ensure all students are safe physically and emotionally. Her family says they didn't help Jocelynn.
That statement? Total damage control. We take bullying seriously. This is just one of those empty and meaningless statements that a school is going to issue out to try to make themselves look like they care when they don't give a flying shit. This literally is just saying, hey, even though we weren't proactive enough in the situation and this incident happened on our premises, at least we still care that your daughter committed suicide. And remember, Jocelynn was meeting with the counselor multiple times a week because of this situation, and the school didn't even bother informing her parents about this.
Her mom says bullying got so bad at Gainesville Intermediate School that Jocelynn was meeting with a school counselor several times a week. But her mom says they only learned that after her suicide attempt.
So as any superintendent that wants to maintain a good image of their school and not actually own up to any failures would do, He said this.
Tonight, Kevin Reese has new information and reaction from the superintendent, who claims administrators had no idea she was being bullied.
But Superintendent Des Stewart did talk to Gainesville radio station KGAF. He says the school was unaware of the bullying until after Jocelyn's death.
Students started coming to the table to make administration aware of kind of what's taking place.
You were unaware of the bullying until after Jocelyn's death. Really? You're telling me even with students coming forward and telling you about the situation, you had no idea what was going on? Bullying doesn't just happen in a vacuum. If a kid was getting counseling sessions because of this, and then you have other kids that are also talking about this, that means this was happening for a while. How would the school not notice this? Schools are meant to take care of your children and be proactive in situations like this, not be completely oblivious like, oops, I didn't know that was going on. Like, do you have to see a kid physically on top of another kid just punching him in the face in order for you to go, even though there's not a bullying report filed here, I think there is some bullying going on over there. Yes, I can see it with my own two eyes. This is bullying. I'm going to step in.
So that we then found out at that particular moment that there was indeed some ongoing bantering and issues back and forth.
And then to say it was just bantering back and forth, that's a very interesting way to frame the situation, when the reality was kids were going up to her and saying, I hope your parents get deported by ICE and I'm going to threaten to call the police on them to get them deported so that you can stay here alone. You fucking Mexican. That is basically what those kids were saying, but no, I guess that's just banter in this superintendent's mind, right? That is just a complete downplay of the whole situation, and it goes to show how much the school didn't even care to handle this situation. But wait. Do you remember those counseling sessions that Jocelynn was going to? Yeah, that superintendent, he thinks it wasn't even counseling. He said that she was going to some coping skills group instead.
And to the mom's claim that Jocelynn was seeing a school counselor to complain about being bullied.
She was part of a group to help with coping skills. She wanted to go for coping skills.
Let me just give the superintendent some credence and say, okay, sure, maybe you're right. Maybe it wasn't counseling and it actually was just a coping skills group. You're telling me that not a single person in that group was asking Jocelynn, why is she here? Or what is she struggling with? Literally, one of the first things that you do when you go to any sort of coping skills group is talk about your problems. And somehow, some way, the people that were a part of this group had no idea what Jocelynn was going through. Or let's say that they did know what she was going through. If the school really thought that Jocelynn just needed coping skills, then simply tell the parents that your daughter is part of a group that is meant to support people who are struggling with their mental health.
There was nothing related to bullying. There was never a bullying report. She was not being seen for bullying.
Ah, yes. Because there wasn't a bullying report that was filed, how are we supposed to know that there was any bullying going on? She's supposed to come into the principal's office, dress super nice, and come in with a very neatly written report that says, I am getting bullied, sir. That's just not how it works. Most kids don't even know how to file a formal report. And even if they do, most of them would be way too shy or embarrassed to come forward with that type of stuff. I don't know how many of you guys remember being in grade school, but not a single person in school wants to be known as the kid who can't stand up for themselves and goes to the principal's office with a bullying report. Like, tell me you're avoiding accountability without saying you're avoiding accountability. Jocelyn's funeral was held just a few days ago on February 19th, and everybody wore a sweatshirt with Jocelyn's picture on it to commemorate her.
It was 12 degrees in Gainesville when they carried the casket into St. Mary's Catholic Church. She has angel wings. She's floating in the clouds. What her family wants to see next is earthly justice for whoever may have taunted her to death.
Something I haven't really hammered on yet is just how messed up it is to psychologically torment someone based on their ethnicity. Like, if you want to talk shit about somebody because they're a shitty person, go ahead. Assholes deserve to be called assholes. I agree. But to malign somebody over something they cannot control and something that they didn't have a choice over, which is the color of their skin and what their face looks like, is just deplorable and a lazy way of making fun of somebody. Imagine if Jocelynn was born a different ethnicity, one where people don't instantly make a bunch of negative assumptions about you simply based on where you or your family is from. She wouldn't have to deal with 90% of the insults that she was getting. And I'm sure if somebody was desperate enough, yeah, they would find something to make fun of her about, whether it's her hair, her clothes, her teeth, or whatever. But it's a hell of a lot harder to make fun of somebody when their ethnicity, which is the most noticeable thing about that person, isn't just some low-hanging fruit that you could easily target. So yeah, this was just a tragic situation. Condolences to the family, And hopefully we don't have to see too much more stuff like this, but you never know. That's pretty much all I got. Take care.